So we'll start. So basically we're going to go through where the halachot of the 9 days start, the sources, and see how they developed through the years. Less on like a historical perspective, more from the Rishonim, Ahronim, Minhagim, things like that. And there you'll see that some of the issues that we have, meaning there's basically we're going to go through two issues. One issue is Masao Matan, which is doing business, buying things, selling things, right? Masao Matan. And the other one is eating meat and drinking wine. So the original Mishnah in Masechet Ta'anit, so the front page is the page that has the little screenshot of a topic. That's the front page. Let's start there. Mishnah Masechet Ta'anit, right? This is the end of Mishnah Vav. It says Mishinechnas Av Mu'atin Mesimcha. That once Av comes in, right, from Rosh Chodesh Av, you need to diminish your happiness. You can't be as happy as you are in regular life in Tish'a, meaning from in the month of Av. But you're going to have to see what does that mean halachically, right? Everyone's supposed to just look over sad all the time. I don't know what that means. Shabbat shechal Tish'a be'av liot betocha asur l'saper u'lechabetz b'hamishim utarim b'nei kod Shabbat erev Tish'a be'av lo yochal adam shetavshin lo yochal basar lo yishteh yain. And then you see that there's a development of how much avelut you're supposed to have, right? In the beginning, from Nechnas Av, right from the Rosh Chodesh, you're supposed to diminish your happiness. From the week that Tish'a be'av falls in, right? This year we don't have that because Tish'a be'av is on a Sunday. But from the week that Tish'a be'av falls in, if it's on a Wednesday, from Sunday to Wednesday, there's all these halachot that you're not allowed to have a haircut, you're not allowed to do laundry, right? You're not allowed to wear freshly laundered clothes either. That's the same thing. But if it comes on Thursday, you can do it because of Shabbat, whatever it is. Now, on Erev Tish'a be'av, the level even goes up even higher. What are you not allowed to do? For the Seudah, before Tish'a be'av, right, from on the night, it's called the Seudah Mafseket, you're not allowed to eat meat, and you're not allowed to have two separate cooked foods, meaning you're only allowed to have one cooked food, right? So if you're going to have meat, you can't have rice. You can have pasta, you can't have on the side of, I don't know, cooked rice, whatever it is, right? So you can, it depends, and there's halachot, what's considered two tafshilim, what's considered one tafshil, and you're not allowed to have meat, right? Like I said, I don't know why I said meat. You're not allowed to have meat on Seudah Mafseket, which is an interesting thing because that means that any time before the Seudah Mafseket, from the din of the Mishnah, you're allowed to have meat. On the same day, on Erev Tish'a be'av, if it's not the Seudah Mafseket, you're allowed to have meat, right? So that's clear from the Mishnah. And the only other source that we have about this, right, in the Mishnah, they basically talk about, the only thing that they talk about in the Gemara about this Mishnah is dinim within this, right? To say that from the fact that you can't do laundry, what can't you do? Can you do your friend's laundry? Can you do laundry for after the Moed? For other things like that, right? So, yeah, unfortunately I don't have any more source sheets. So the Gemara in Yevamot, Perek HaCholetz, there's a Baraita. It says, Tanya, Kodem Azman, so a Baraita again is the time from the Mishnah. It was just basically a thing that they wrote at the time of the Mishnah. People had their own Baraitot and things like that, but it wasn't actually put into the actual publication of the Mishnah. But it was basically from that time, and it was considered halacha then, and then the Gemara basically puts together Mishnayot and Baraitot to see what's halacha. So Baraita in Perek HaCholetz in Masechet Yevamot says, Kodem Azman Hazeh, from before the time of Shavuot Shehabo, because that's what the Gemara is talking about, has Am Ma'atin Be'iskehen, Milisa Militen, Milivnot Benito, Me'arsin Avalo Konsin, Ve'en Alsin Seudat Yerusi. Means that they diminish, like we said, Ma'atin Be'simcha, Me'ma'atin Be'iskehen, that they lower their level of business, of their planting trees and gardens. Sorry? Yeah, from Kodem Azman Hazeh, meaning Kodem the Shavuot Shehabo, and then Mefarshim say it means Rosh Chodesh, right? So you're not allowed. You diminish your business. You diminish your planting trees. You're building houses, and you can get engaged, but you can't get married. There's a whole thing. But the engaged is talking about the engagement at that time. It's not our topic. But Harambam, we're going to read Harambam because he doesn't bring this to halacha. He doesn't bring this Baraita to halacha, and we'll see a couple of reasons why. Rambam says, "Mishikanes av ma'atin v'simcha." When Av comes in, he copies the Mishnah. He says, "You diminish your happiness. You lower your happiness." V'Shabbat shechal Tish'a be'av liot b'tocha asur lechabes lesaper ulechabes lilbosh kli meguhatz afilu klet mishtan ad she'awar ta'anit. Right, like we saw in the Mishnah. Right, he's basically copying down the Mishnah. He's saying that Mishnas Av from the Rosh Chodesh, you lower your happiness. From the week that Tish'a be'av falls out on, you're not supposed to get a haircut. You're not supposed to wash your clothes. You can't wear freshly laundered clothes, right? Afilu lechabes la'aniya achara ta'anit asur. You can't even do laundry for after the ta'anit, right? Ukvar nahagu Yisrael shelo le'echol b'asar b'shabbat zo. This is a very interesting line in the Harambam. He doesn't usually talk about minhag, Harambam, right? He usually is posek la'alacha, whatever is in the Gemara or whatever it is. But here he's adding that kvar nahagu Yisrael, somehow, he's not bringing it from sources or from the Gemara. He's saying kvar nahagu Yisrael, that we don't eat basar b'shabbat zo, specifically in the week, meaning in the week that Tish'a BeAb falls out in, not from the 9 days, for the week that Tish'a BeAb falls out in. It also says that they don't used to go into the bathhouses during the week of Tish'a BeAb. It says there are some places, right, not here necessarily, where Harambam is talking about, but there are some places where they would stop the shechita from the time of the 9 days. From Rosh Chodesh Av, they would stop being shochet animals. But it doesn't say anything about them not eating meat from Rosh Chodesh Av. But the Shavua Shechal says kvar nahagu. It's a minhag. I don't know where it started, just from reading Harambam. I don't know where it started. I don't know why. But it's something that they were nohe, which we saw from the Mishnah and the Gemara, that the only time that you're not supposed to eat meat halachically is not just Erev Tish'a BeAv, the Seudah Mafseket. Erev Tish'a BeAv in the morning, you could have a hamburger if you want, according to the Dina of the Gemara. So, anyone have any idea why you think Harambam wouldn't bring that down in Halakha? The idea of that you're not supposed to do extra business and things like that. You know?
There's no nazar.
Okay, so that's interesting. There's another sentence in the Gemara in Masechet Ta'anit, that if somebody has a thing to do, right, with a goy, right, a business deal to do with a goy, or a court case or something to do with a goy, then in Av you should run away from the goy. And if it's in Adar, you should try to do it in Adar. And that's our papa. Why? Deriya mazaleh, because your mazal, which it could be translated as luck, but it basically means that you're going to have low chance of doing well during that time in Av, so you should run away from him in Av. So that's an interesting point, but that is a different source than this, meaning that is saying that if you have a deen with a goy, you should run away from him during the month of Av, because Riya Mazaleh. But like you're saying, maybe Harambam holds En Mazal Israel, right? So maybe that's why he wouldn't be posek that. But then this baraita in Yebamot has nothing to do with that. This baraita in Yebamot, even with Jews, even in your regular business, has nothing to do with goyim. If you're doing business, you should diminish the amount of business that you're doing on Tish'a BeAv. I mean, on the week, from the 9 days, right, from the Rosh Chodesh Av to Av. So Harambam doesn't bring that. So the simple answer of the Lechem Mishneh is that because the whole idea that he's basing, that the Beraita is based on, is that it's Mishnechnas Av Mima'atin Besimcha, right? Huh? Good, beauty. So Mishnechnas Av Mima'atin Besimcha, that you're supposed to lower your happiness from the time that Av comes in. He already said that. He said you're supposed to lower the happiness that you have until time when Rosh Chodesh Av comes in, right? He said that in the beginning of Av, Yikanes Av Mima'atin Besimcha, and that includes Masa Matan Shel Simcha, business that has to do with happiness, meaning buying things for a wedding, or buying a car just so you can enjoy it, not for business, not for any logistical reasons, right? So those kind of things would be the only things that are not allowed, not just any business. And that Harambam already included in Mishikanes Av Mima'atin Besimcha. That's one reason. That's the Lechem Mishneh. We're not going to read it inside because we don't have that much time. The Bet Yosef says very interestingly, "Ve'achshav lo nahagu rov ha'olam lema'ed b'masa'u matan klal b'shenechnas Av." Right? He's saying that what I see around the minhag, again, we're talking a lot about minhag here, of what's going on, because there's less ability to just see in the sources because there aren't many sources. There's Mishkanes Av Mima'atin Besimcha, there's the Baraita, and the Bet Yosef is Maran Shulchan Aruch. He's seeing outside. He's saying, I don't see anyone doing that. Everyone's doing regular business in the 9 days, right? So how could they do that? It seems like they must be explaining the Baraita, right? It must be, like we just said, like the Lechem Mishneh said, that it's only things like building a house just for simcha, or things like your child's getting married, so you're doing things for that. That's what's asur. But people with their regular business are allowed to continue on their day-to-day lives, right? So he's bringing down the Lechem Mishneh.
Don't we also hold that if it's a deal that you should buy it, like if it's something cheap that you can't.
That's going to change.
Yeah,
After, yeah, so that's already the ideas of the Haronim based on if it is Asur, so when do we allow it to be, if it's something that you're going to lose out on something. But first we have to see, is there actually any Isur? Maybe there's no Isur in general. Yeah.
So I'm building a deal house. I have to stop construction for 9 days.
According to the Lech HaMishneh, that it's for Simcha,
Yeah.
then yeah, you're not
Is that simcha just building my house?
yeah, if it's not something that you live in and it's a vacation, then yeah. But wait,
I'm gonna live in some.
but you're not living there now. It's not something that's necessary now for you to live in.
Right.
It's for Simcha. מפני כך, נושאים ונותנים כדרכם אינם חוששים לפי זה צריך להיזהר במשא ומתן של שמחה. Right, so he's saying, so based on that, you have to worry about if you're going to do business that has to do with Simcha. כגון, צורכי חופה, like things for a wedding or something like that. But that's one answer that he brings. ואפשר לומר עוד, he's saying another answer that I could give. This is not necessarily one that he's seeing, but he's another one answer that I could give. שהעולם סוברים שאין המעיק בזה כלל, ואפילו אין צורכי חופה, meaning that it's not limited to משא ומתן של שמחה. Every משא ומתן, any business that you're going to do, mutar on the 9 days. Why? Well, we have this baraita that says, how's he going to deal with that baraita? What does he say? Midat hasidut hi. That baraita is a midat hasidut. If you want to be extra careful, you could be a hasid. You don't have to do business that has to do with simcha. But or if there's some reason you're living in a place where there are no heg not to, so you shouldn't be different from where you're living. But that's why the Rif doesn't write this. We just read Harambam. He doesn't bring it, right? The Rosh doesn't bring it. That's the Shra Mudeh Hara'ah. They don't bring this baraita. But we see people, and we see people are not really doing it. So that could be why. That this baraita is not nifsak le'alacha. Right, and that we can see in the Rav Kafeh, right? Katav b'nei Shmuel, b'inyan Shmuel, ayin Lech HaMishneh, amay shmita ben. Right, he brings the Lech HaMishneh, which means he's saying, I saw the reason that they're saying that it's only business that has to do with Simcha, but v'hanir ali t'svira le'Rabbeinu. What I think, Rambam was saying, d'mitnitin didan de'ayri b'Tish'a BeAb, v'tani b'ma'atim b'Simcha, ve'lo tani b'masah u'matan, shma minat de'leta le'i braita. From our Mishnah, that it says that you're supposed to diminish your happiness on Tish'a BeAv, right? It says Ma'atim Simcha, and it has nothing to do with Masah Matan. It doesn't bring it. If our Mishnah was saying that you should diminish your Masah Matan in the 9 days from Rosh Chodesh Av and on, should have said so. It says Ma'atim Simcha, and it doesn't address it. Seems like our Mishnah doesn't hold like that, right? The sugya, and now the sugya b'duchtar ikar. Sorry, we're looking at that. Yeah, the sugya b'duchtar ikar. The im ita havel gemara le'otuyeh. And then even not our Mishnah. Let's say our Mishnah, fine. Our Mishnah is not going to say it. The Gemara that is commenting on our Mishnah, if the Gemara is saying that the halakha is that you're not supposed to be doing your regular business, that you're supposed to be memarid b'masal matan, like we have the baraita in Perek HaCholetz, it should have brought it. It said, what does that mean? You lower your business, you lower your binyan, you lower your niti'ah, but it's not saying that. And therefore, Rav Kahan holds, write something like this, Rambam also, interestingly, brings this idea of the Mim'atin Be'iskehem with regards to other fasts that don't have to do with our congregational fasts, that have to do with Tish'a BeAv, Sheva Asar Tammuz, not those fasts. Fasts that we have that when there's no rain or there's any plagues that are coming on the tzibur and things like that, that we, the Hachamim, like command us that we're supposed to fast every Monday, Thursday. So if it gets really bad and there's 7 fasts in a row, then you start worrying like this and you start diminishing your business and things like that. So Rambam brings it there, but he doesn't bring it here, right? And he's holding that this Mishnah that's talking about Tish'a BeAv, this Mishnah in Masechet Ta'anit, where it's talking about Tish'a BeAv and the dinim that have to do with Av and Mishik Nasnas, Av and Ma'atim Simcha, it's not bringing that baraita, Perek HaCholetz, we don't hold of it. So according to Rambam, the only thing that we hold of in the 9 days is Mim'atin B'Simcha. And he doesn't say how it comes into effect, the halakha, meaning that it doesn't have any halakhic ramifications in terms of don't do this specific thing or don't do this specific thing. It's like we say, Mishnas Av Marbim B'Simcha, doesn't mean that you're supposed to have ice cream parties every day in Av, right? Which you could have it if you want to make it be happy. But Av, there's no halakhic thing that you're supposed to be in the 9 days that you're supposed to be married B'Simcha. You have from Shavua Shehalbo, don't do laundry, don't get haircuts, right? On Erev Tish'a BeAv for the Seudah Masechet, don't eat meat. But he says some people were noheg, right? Kvar nahagu, not to eat meat in Shavua Shechalo, but the 9 days, it's just Ma'atim Besimcha, right? In the Shulchan Aruch though, he says, Merosh Chodesh Ta'anit B'Ma'atim B'Masau Matan B'Nyan Shesimcha. He is posek the reason of the Lechem Mishneh that Harambam doesn't bring it down. He is posek the reason that Harambam included the Masau Matan in the Ma'atim Besimcha. That really, yeah, the halachot of the 9 days are confounded on the Baraitan Masechet Yevamot, and therefore the Shulchan Aruch is posek that you're not supposed to do the business that has to do with Simcha. So you see here there's difference of opinion between Shulchan Aruch and Rav Kafir, but basically you see how in the Gemara it just says Ma'atim Besimcha, and then Harambam brings down Ma'atim Besimcha, but it doesn't bring the Baraitan Kacholetz. And now there's a question: is he being posek like that? Is he not being posek like that? And there's difference of opinion. Now, what usually everyone talks about in the 9 days is not really generally the business aspect, because it less applies to every single person. But what is always talked about, if you flip the pages, meat and wine during the 9 days. Are you allowed to eat meat during the 9 days? So the Magid Mishneh says, where Harambam says that the minhag was already at the time of the Harambam, right, 800, 900 years ago, was that they wouldn't eat meat during Shavua Shechalo. Right? So he says, the Magid Mishneh says, minhag hazeh lo pashat be'artzot el. This minhag didn't come to us. Meaning the Magid Mishneh, who lived in the 1500s basically, he was in the time of, we actually don't really know of any other books that Magid Mishneh wrote. He's like a regular Hakam in South France, southwestern France. And so he says that there, we didn't have this minhag of not eating meat, which is 500 years after Harambam. So it didn't really spread to his place. Right? Only Erev Tish'a BeAb you have to worry about eating meat. But the bathhouse minhag did come to that, right? That they don't go to the bathhouse. This is Magid Mishneh pointing out that it's clear, nobody disagrees with this. Davar barurhu shedin gamur, that according to the Merikara din gamur, without any minhag or anything like that, afilu Erev Tish'a BeAb utarin l'chotz. Right? According to the actual Marikarat Din, without bringing in Humrot, Midah Hasidut, and Halakha, you're obviously allowed to take a shower, even with the minhag, that you're not supposed to take a shower during the whole Shavua Shechalo or go to the bathhouse, right? Even with that minhag, you're clearly allowed to, even on Erev Tish'a BeAb. Meaning it's just a minhag. But Marikarat Din, nobody disagrees. Meat, bathhouse, all that kind of stuff, you're allowed on Erev Tish'a BeAb. Only when are you not allowed? Serodam Mafsek. Now, the Rashba brings, Nahagu avotenu nohei hanefesh shelo le'echol basar v'shechnas av. Right, the Rashba, so you see different accountings of what the minhag was. The Rashba says, we see that the Rabotenu weren't eating meat. But when about she'en kan isur klal midin Talmud, which he's again pointing out and clarifying for you, there's no isur midin Talmud for this, right? Clearly, midin Talmud, there's no isur of eating meat. She'afilu be'erev atzom v'ser mudah she'en mafsik ba mutar le'echol b'asar l'shtot yain, even for breakfast. Right? On Erev Tish'a BeAb, you're allowed to eat meat, right? Besides for the Serodam Seket. Afilu chen mi she'ochel basar b'chol makomot she'nahagu bo isur poretz godel kol shel rishonim. Saying anyone that's eating meat in these times, even though we know that midina gemara that it's mutar, anyone that's eating meat in the 9 days, right? Because he's saying mishnechnas av, right? He's the first time that he's addressing. Really, the Ramban is the first time he's addressing it, but he puts it out here that from the 9 days mishnechnas av, you're not allowed to eat meat in terms of minhag, even though Merikara Din is allowed. And anyone that eats meat in these times, poretz gader. You should not be doing that. You're going crazy, right? But and poretz gader, yishachenu nahash. If you do that, poretz gader, you get bitten by a snake somehow. Whatever. Bet Yosef or Haim. Bet Yosef brings the Rashba, and he says, and he brings the Rabbeinu Hashem Melonir and the Kolbo. I'm not going to read it inside just quickly, but the Kolbo says that some say, meaning now they're trying to bring reasons, right? Because the sources in the Gemara don't say that you're not allowed to eat meat in the 9 days. There's nothing, right? Even the Baraita and Achaletz that we saw that's talking about the 9 days doesn't say anything about eating meat. It says that you're supposed to diminish your business, or your building, or your planting, or whatever it is. But it says nothing about eating meat. The first time we hear about eating meat is Harambam saying Nahagu in Shavua Shechalo. So where does this come from? Where does this minhag of not eating meat even come from? So the Bet Yosef brings the kolbo. He says because when we say right, we also have another famous line that says en simcha ela basar bayayin. So if you have to diminish your simcha, you diminish your basar bayayin, so you don't eat basar bayayin. That's the reason that they add on to it. Meaning, we have this minhag, we have to understand why we have this minhag, right? It didn't necessarily start from someone reading a book and saying, I must not eat basar and drink wine in these days. We have this minhag, and now let's try to put reasons onto it. We're not going to change the minhag, right? Because everybody does this, right? We know that's a big idea in psikat halacha, right? What do? Do you throw out all the minhagim if you think that it's wrong, or when you see a minhag, everybody does this basically, besides for the Temani, right? Everybody doesn't eat meat in the 9 days, so let's not throw it out. There must be some reason to it. There must be some importance to it. It manifested in our nation. So let's see how do we explain it, right? That's the quote. Rabbeinu Asher Milonil says another reason. Right? He's adding it not even for the 9 days. He's adding it for the 3 weeks from Shivasa Tammuz. Why? So I'm just going to skip all the way to the bottom for this. You see Talmud Bavli Masech Baba Tra, the last source.
That's wine and meat. I mean, it's meat.
Yeah, exactly. Meaning from the Mikdash, because there's wine and meat in the Mikdash. The Mikdash was there for us, so it was there for the Mikdash. In the 3 weeks, we don't eat meat and drink wine. So let's look at the Gemara in Masech Baba Tra, which might be some sort of like inspiration for people to not eat meat because of the Chorban. Because otherwise, like they're just bringing out random stuff. So let's see the Gemara. Tanu Rabbana. Kesheharav Bayit B'shniya. Right, meaning the second Beit HaMikdash, Ravu Pirushim B'Yisrael Shelo Le'echol Basar V'Shelo L'Shtot Yain. There were a lot of people that after the Chorban Bayit Sheni, nobody, not just in the 3 weeks or in the 9 days or anything, they just wouldn't eat meat, drink wine. No more. The Bayit is Nehrab, we're Avail, we're mourning, we don't eat meat, drink wine anymore. Rabbi Yoshua comes, and he sees this, and he says, Amar Lahen, Beni, why are you doing this? Why are you not eating meat or drinking wine? It's weird. He's coming to the city. They're all not drinking wine or eating meat. Why not? How could we eat meat? We used to bring meat up on the Mizbeach, and there's no more. We used to put wine, Nisucha Yain, on the Mizbeach, there's no more. How could we do that? How could we sit here and just eat meat like nothing happened? What is that? That's why, imken, so then you can't eat bread, right? There's lechem hapanim, right? There's not just lechem hapanim, there's no minhot, right? Minhot are the matzot that they would bring on the mizbeach. The kohen every single day, the kohen gadol would bring mincha. How could you eat bread? He said, okay, fine. So they said, yeah, you're right, maybe fine, we'll eat fruit. We'll eat fruit. He said, what do you mean fruit? They bring bikurim in the mikdash. You're gonna not eat any fruit? It's like, oh no, you could have it for other fruits. In the bikurim, they would only bring the shirat minim. Right? That's what they would bring the bikurim. But bikurim, if you have a peach, that's not bikurim. So we'll eat other fruits. He says, okay, fine. Other fruits. You're not going to drink water? Right? That's one of the biggest things in Mikdash. Sorry, I'm skipping around. Right? We bring the water on the Mizbeach. So you're not going to drink water? So obviously it's a ridiculous svara. Meaning, not that the svara was with bad intentions. They're trying to mourn the Mikdash, but it's misconstrued, right? You're trying to mourn the Mikdash, but you're being hypocritical, right? You're not eating meat or drinking wine, but you're eating the lechem, you're drinking water, all those things. So they shatku. They didn't know what to say, right? He has a good point. Maybe we should eat meat. Amar lehen beni bo sorry, right? So what are we supposed to do? So we're not going to say you shouldn't do any avalut, right? Because Mikdash was destroyed. You got to do some avalut. And we're not going to say that you should not eat any of those things because that's too much. So what do? It says they would leave in their houses a specific area in their house where it wasn't fully built. Zechir Mikdash, that is destroyed. So we're going to have a place that is not fully finished in our household. So that's a Gemara. Now, so that clearly that Gemara is posek that you don't have to not eat meat, not drink wine, not all those things for the Chorban Bayit. But in this time, right, because Butal Tamid, right, and the wine wasn't brought on the Mizbeach. So in the time that we're mourning the Mikdash, more so, right, between BeAb Ben HaBetzarim from Shabbat Tammuz till Tish'a BeAb, so maybe we shouldn't eat meat and drink wine at this small time, because it's not that hard, right? We could do that for 9 days, for 3 weeks maybe, right? Not the whole life, right? Like Rabbi Yoshua was saying that you shouldn't do that, it's too much. So maybe that's why, right? So either, so far we saw that it's because Shelo, meaning that you have to diminish your happiness, and Basar not bring you happiness, or because it's Zechel Mikdash, that they used to have meat and wine. So Shulchan Aruch says, Yesh noagim shelo le'echol basar ve'shelo lishtot yain b'shabbat zo. Again, see how it's very important to see the language. Any halacha, not just Rambam. Shulchan Aruch also. Yesh noagim, there are those that have the minhag not to eat meat and wine from Shavua Shehalbo. Ve'yesh mosifin ve'rosh chodesh hatanit. Some people add on to that from Rosh Chodesh until Tish'a BeAb. V'yesh mosifin mi-17 b'Tammuz. And some add from 17 b'Tammuz even. So he's bringing all the minhagim, right? It's clearly not Merikad Adin Halakha like it's on the Rash, everyone's agreeing with that. No one's disagreeing. The Merikad Adin, there's no issue. Everyone's agreeing though that there is some sort of minhag, right? The Magid Mishneh is saying the minhag didn't come to here, but I know that there's a minhag, right? And the Rambam is bringing a minhag, which is very not typical of Rambam to bring minhagim, but there's definitely minhagim going around. And Shulchan is bringing all of them, saying that some say Shavua Shechalva, some say it's the 9 days, some say the 3 weeks, right? And the Gra basically brings the reasoning for this minhag from the Gemara and Baba Batra that we just read. He's basically saying that. That's why I skipped ahead. But now let's look at this interesting Yerushalmi that actually I learned myself, but I found it from Rabbi Harari. That he says, so this Yerushalmi says, Amar Rabbi Zerira, Neshiyah de Nahagan de la Mishtaya, min dav alil minhag shebo paska even ashitiyah. Min dav alil minhag shebo paska even ashitiyah. Meaning, if you break it down, right? Neshiyah, the women that have the minhag, lo le mishtaya. What is the mishtaya? It sounds like drinking, right? Drinking wine. There's other girsa'ot of the Yerushalmi that are mistaking girsa'ot that says that they lemishtaya hamra and la'achila basar, that the women that don't drink wine and eat meat. But here the mishtaya, what does mishtaya mean? Anyone heard of shetiv ha'erev? Shetiv ha'erev means that they used to have the not sewing but weaving. Yeah, weaving with sheti. Sheti means like horizontal. Erev is the vertical, right? That they would weave fabrics and clothing, and the women from the time, right, min de'av ali, from the time that Av comes in, they wouldn't weave, right? Minhag. What? Yeah, correct, exactly. That's why I would have women in the Talmud Yerushalmi, right? It's not just going to say, oh, women don't drink wine or eat meat, right? Why shebo paska even ashetiyah? Even ashetiyah, right? It's not the stone of drinking. What's the source of the word even ashetiyah? That the whole olam was mushtaq mimeno, that it was based on even shetiyah, right? So shetiyah is not from drinking, it's from sheti, right? From the weaving, right? So that maybe is another reason, right? Shulchan Aruch says nashit nagid de la meshte, right? He's bringing up the seif before he talks about the meat, that women that didn't weave, perush lesader v'la'aroch hachutim sheholchim le'orucho shel habeged, right? To set up the strings and the fabrics that are going to the length, right? The horizontal length of the beged, right? Amra minhagah, that it's minhag, that the women wouldn't weave from the beginning of Av. So maybe this is another source for how people started to not drink wine or eat meat, that they had this Yerushalmi with the wrong girsah that translated shati, right, instead of the weaving, to drinking wine. And the women wouldn't drink wine. It would make sense because of the harban and things like that, not because they have the shetiyah. So that's another source that maybe we can see, but we see here just the main idea that I was trying to bring was, first of all, so you can see the development of halakha, which is, this is not the only sugya. Not only is it not the only sugya, this is one of the sugyot that show at least, meaning there's every single sugya that you have in halakha are going to be like one line in the Gemara, and then you have Rambam basically summarize that line, and then all the Rishonim and the Acharonim just develop and expound upon that line, and there's, as you can see, our libraries come from all one Talmud, right? We have insane amounts of books, right? So every sugya basically has this type of thing where there's something that the Gemara, and then a lot of times where there's practices that we see that we have to explain, right? And here that you can see the Hachamim are not trying to take away the practice, right? They think, okay, it's this minhag that's come into effect into our people, right? It's that everybody basically does this, either from Shavua Shechalva, either the 9 days or the 3 weeks, but we see that this minhag has been accepted, so let's explain it. So we saw many different reasons, and Be'ezrat Hashem next year we want to do the same.